in general, if you don't have a global setup, there are meanwhile a lot of platforms which can provide you with transparency on market tendencies. So one of them, of course, is Container Exchange, where you can see exactly which stretch is probably the most interesting for the time being. And yeah, I guess this is also something which we see, and we already discussed super before on this. The market transfer is really one point where a container trader, it doesn't matter if local, regional, or global, can really increase the profitability and increase also the efficiency of the fleet.
Okay, and how are you sourcing your containers right now? Where is it all manufactured? Is it local? Is it global? Maybe both of you can give a few points on that.
Okay, shall I start?
Super. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we are basically purchasing our cargo-worthy and this equipment from container leasing companies like Triton, Textainer, so the leasing companies, as well as shipping lines, Hapag, Costco, and so on. But also locally with we have cooperations with traders, we have cooperations with NVOCCs, so we are really sourcing globally. We make deals, let's say in upfront, so we know, okay, in 4 weeks containers will arrive, so we already pay our customer, and we know that 4 weeks after we have the container available in the locations where we need it.
Excellent. I will take this forward. So depends, Harish. The sourcing of the container sometimes depends on the demand locations, for a container trader. If I have a demand from the customer in China, or probably a lot of times we have a domesticated market in India. We are also present in Europe for our domestication business. So in today's market, unfortunately, the shipping lines are not off-hiring. Shipping lines are not selling very big freight because they themselves are having a shortage of container. More or less, leasing companies are also not selling containers in a big percentage. So the market is wide open. The container keep exchanging from the one container trader to another container trader. A lot of demand in China, but again, when going back to surplus locations from Europe, maybe the same container trader is selling the container to the other trader, who is again trying to reposition the same container by identifying a one-way partner back to China or demand location. So in today's market, again, not to underestimate, Chinese factories are still not working at the full capacity. So if I just recently placed an order for new container and I got a production schedule before Chinese New Year, but bit difficult for me to predict what will the market after 6 months, right? But that is exactly the scenario right now. The new production is not coming very easily because it takes time. Yeah, so we are sourcing from multiple sources. The brand new container, the supply is very limited.
Okay, great. But so as far as you've told me, as of now, your source is the open market and marketplaces like Container Exchange. But do either of your companies have plans to manufacture your own containers, or still the dependence on China continues?
No, so Harish, let's accept it. Nobody can beat Chinese manufacturer, right? Because they have built an ecosystem. And not to underestimate, it's not only about the production, but you will quickly get the cargo. For any container to be economically viable, you cannot repositioning that container. Giving an example today, many European customers require container for their domestic use. And that is exactly where a container trader like us, we are offering the container for one-way use by charging the heavy pickup fees, right? But this is incredible time where such pickup fees I haven't seen in my last 20 years of career. And I know this kind of pickup fees are not sustainable going forward. So again, China is a market. The moment you produce a container, you block your huge capital, but again, you have a cargo from the day one. Now going back to rest of the market, unfortunately, they do not have such a huge cargo because most of those countries are consumer countries where they have enough import. So again, if you produce a new container, if you reposition that container, then economically, it's not going to be viable. So I think globally, the global dependency on China for procuring container will continue to remain for some time.
Yeah, we saw
Christian, do you
tendencies.
feel the same way?
Yeah, that there are tendencies and also some programs to set up production facilities for containers in Vietnam, and I also saw something in the newspaper from India. But I totally agree with Supal. So we will be also for the future highly dependent on the manufacturing capacities of Chinese factories, and this especially due to the huge cargo flow which comes out of China. This is really the most important point to mention here, as it's really easy to move the containers to the right places where let's say the buyer, the end user needs the container, and it's easy to combine the cargo flows with the shipper's own container in the moment.
So what sort of balance situation does your company have, Christian, in terms of do you have many containers sitting in surplus location which you need to get to demand location, or is it fairly balanced?
I would say so. In the moment, there's really no surplus location. So all around the globe, there's a huge demand on containers. So it doesn't matter where you have containers, you can sell, you can move. So in general, we don't have any surplus area for the time being, but it's an extraordinary time. So it's not a normal time which we have. So usually we have, of course, containers in let's say some countries of South America. We have containers in some countries in Europe where we have to repo the containers and or find one-way partners through exchange, or also our personal network. And but in the moment, actually, no, there's from our side no surplus. We are I would say we're crying for more containers.
Supal, do you have the similar situation, or is yours different?
Similar situations, because normally what happens here is that any container trader will always source the container, right? Depends on the demand, and that is exactly what the flexibility as a container trader we have. So so again, in today's market, and as rightly mentioned by Christian, these are the exceptional time where let me put it in that way, the COVID has opened up a lot of opportunities, lot of new players in a container trading have entered. And I think at least till Chinese New Year, I am personally very bullish up to probably next even 12 months. So this will continue. There are no surplus locations for time being.
But okay, when we look at the fleet of containers, there is a shortage, but the overall demand post-COVID has not changed much from pre-COVID in terms of the container demand. So what happened to all the existing fleet of containers in the market? Because it must be sitting somewhere. Globally, I'm talking globally, not just on the container market, but container trading, but globally. Has that changed quite a bit? And is there a lot of new bills coming into play?
Should I handle this question?
Yeah, yes, please.
So there are various factors, Harish. Let's take an example of a few months back, we had a problem with the Suez, right? So the entire global supply chain is slowing down. Earlier, the container flow, movement of the ships, movement of the container, whether from a terminal to the factory, de-stuffing the cargo, stuffing the cargo back to terminal, that entire movement has slowed down. Now, I don't know whether you keep reading an article that there is a congestion in a Chinese port. There is a congestion in American ports, especially West Coast today. More than 11 container ships are waiting. It's not that terminal are congested. There is a shortage of labor because right now the international traveling is still restricted globally, right? Still, the airports are not freely operating because of the COVID restriction. So I think till the time the world, most of the populations will be vaccinated, again, the labor will start traveling freely between the different countries. I personally don't see a solutions, in terms of this shortage of container will continue to remain because slowdown of the operations globally.
All right. So in terms of your current businesses, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing? Because I think communication is one of the challenges. Is there any other main challenges, and what sort of solutions are you able to find for these challenges? Christian, maybe you can elaborate a bit.
Actually, I wouldn't say that communication is it's a bigger challenge, because from my side, we had the very personal communication flow before, and now as we cannot travel anymore, it's more the digitization which helps us actually to communicate in an easier way.
Okay.
Biggest challenges for our company is, of course, that transactions are much slower. So you need more time. You have, let's say, you need more time per transaction, per selling. You need more time to source containers. The selling activities or processes of the selling activities like surveys are meanwhile really annoying, especially in China, because all the depots are congested. And then you see, of course, from time to time also lockdowns and shutdowns in some cities, some countries, where you really have to react very fast to bring your equipment into the right position. And it's I guess that we in our industry cannot complain, but it's partly also really, it's a challenge, and this is something which we face globally meanwhile. But yeah, it's a good challenge, let's say.
Yeah, that is a good challenge to have. Supal, do you have similar or different type of challenges depending on the geographies, of course, because both of you are based in different areas?
Yeah, more or less the challenges right now is more on an operational front, right? Dealing with the depot is quite annoying. And this is exactly where, as a container trader, I would like to improve my customer service and customer experience. But definitely you depend on the third party, which is a container depot. But while, honestly, these are the exceptional times where every local country has their own local challenges, right? So this is part and parcel. And let me put it in that way. I welcome these challenges because this is exactly where the container prices are going up. And being a part of the container trader fraternity, we are enjoying this exceptional, it's quite a rewarding time. So if everything is smooth, Harish, you don't expect the, extraordinary margin.
Yeah, that is true. And speaking about smooth, how are you finding the reaction from the shipping lines in terms of accepting shipper-owned containers over their own containers? Are they challenges in that? Are they freely accepting, or there are still issues with space or rates in that regard?
Depends on the market, Harish, but say as a Surjak Container Alliance, we are operating special equipment globally. We never found any problem with the space, even in difficult time like today. While loading special equipment is quite challenging, but still probably our volume and values have gone up. So this is a lot of related to your local relations with the local shipping line offices. So yeah, and SOC volume, if you need to compare a percentage, it's too small percentage compared to carriers on container. And yes, there is always a delay. Right now, carriers are not willing to accept SOC container in a big way. But in terms of percentage, I personally don't see a big challenge there.
Yeah, of course, the percentage is quite slow, but especially when shipping lines have or may have surplus in certain areas, they will have probably some reservations to accept SOCs. Christian, in Europe, have you faced that situation?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's just from Europe. It's we see it globally that carriers don't give the promised space allocation to our customers like freight forwarders. But it really depends on the shipping line. It depends on the trade. So there are a lot of factors which will affect SOC allocation. It's also okay. Obviously, let's say, a huge freight forwarder has a better base of negotiation as perhaps a small one, so that he can perhaps add a bit more SOCs to the shippings. But it's really depending on so many factors, and it's for me actually also not very clear which factors are applicable. But yeah, there are restrictions from time to time, but this is not just in these times, but already before. So it's nothing new which we face with shippers' own containers.
Great. And what is the current trend in the market now in the container trading market? Is it more towards container ownership or container rental? Do customers want to do more customers want to buy it, or customers want to rent it? How is that working? What is the trend currently?
You want me to handle this question?
Yes,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. So Harish, let's understand the price of the container is almost probably, in China, the new container, we are talking 7,000 plus in Shanghai. Definitely, nobody would like to block their capital. It's a very expensive affair. So demand for one-way short-term leasing will continue to remain very high. So definitely, this kind of prices are not sustainable for a long term. So I strongly believe if you are a trader or if you are an exporter importer, you would not like to own the container, at least for time being.
But are you talking a specific market or in general? In the global trend is going more towards rental?
Now, global trend earlier also, right? It was always probably the case where when the prices were very low, most of the shipping lines, leasing companies or NBOCC were ordering, own container. But the moment the prices started going up, most of the players would like to lease the container, right? Because nobody would like to block such a huge capital.
Yes. One point to add from my side, I guess it's also a bit depending on the customer. So, for instance, industrial clients who are building huge factories, I guess, or just from my perspective, they still like to buy the equipment, but especially freight forwarders and also some cargo owners. I totally agree with Supal that the trend currently is to lease the container.
And is that a good thing for companies like yourselves who are trading? Would you prefer to sell it, or would you prefer to rent?
I would say it depends. So it's a good mixture. If you are able to move the equipment with a nice pickup charge and then sell it at destination on a good price, or move them back and having again a pickup charge. So it really depends on the situation, on the business case. As mentioned before, we are, for instance, actually more from the container trading side. Okay, we obviously always moved equipment from China to Europe or US, but yeah, it's really depending on the business case and the opportunities to reposition the containers.
Okay, and these portals like Container Exchange obviously can help you with identifying these trends, or do you maintain your own data analytics, or does Exchange also provide some sort of a support on this? Supal?
Yeah, so Container Exchange probably has addressed many pain areas of the industry. So they are doing a fantastic job. But naturally, as a being global player and a Container Exchange is not there, there are still many places where still the a lot of because Container Exchange is all about how many members from different region are joining this marketplace. So we do have our own global data. We do have our global analytics, and as Arcon, as I told you, while container trading will continue to be my priority, but I will share a vision of Container Exchange where I would like to see container more as a service rather than probably the ownership or leasing. Because right now you can't go to leasing company; they are offering 15 years lease without any flexibility. Nobody can predict probably to operate container for 15 years. Yeah, so. Container Exchange is doing a fabulous job. At least as a Arcon, we are very happy with association with Container Exchange.
Okay, no, that's great to hear. And to the attendees, if you have any questions, you can start. You can add that in the Q&A panel. We already have a couple of questions, but if there are any more, we welcome the same. I've got a question from one of the attendees. They would like to know, where do you find the list of available containers from shipping lines or new containers? Is it some list that is available somewhere? Is it maybe Christian, you can cover that?
Also there it depends. There are shipping lines who really shout out how many containers they have in which places, so which is quite comfortable. Some others, like the biggest leasing companies, they have also, let's say, purchasing platforms where you can get an access. But there you really need the contact person within these organizations, and same counts for shipping lines. So Maersk, for instance, has an open platform where you can purchase containers. Some others you need to have a contact, or they are doing some kind of auctions where some traders buying big batches. So yeah, it depends, and it's the same. So exchange can be a nice tool for trading containers, for buying containers, where you have a lot of sources in the different countries. Yeah.
Supal, do you have any other ways of securing containers?
Honestly, being again depends on the which market do you want to source, but at least for a timing, I say that the brand new container, the best way is to become a join the exchange, because many players, including you, will be able to source the new container. Approaching direct shipping lines, there are a lot of restrictions. Their terms and conditions are not very flexible. So I personally don't think, if you are a small time trader or mid-sized trader, it will be quite easy for them to procure. So procuring container via container exchange will give them a lot of flexibility and better understanding about the actual price of the container at the right location.
And staying with you, Supal, there's a question here which I think you can answer. How do you define the state of India's container demand and supply? What is happening at the ports in India? India had a record export, but there are still reports that say there are many containers stuck at the ports in India. So do we have more inbound containers in India? And if yes, then how is that there are shortages of containers?
So
That's
Harish, we are
very typical question,
experiencing we had a lockdown last year. We had a very strict lockdown where there was a disruptions in the entire operations throughout all the ports. Our second wave was bad, where while definitely the shipping industries did not have a big impact during the second wave, while people did have. But right now we are experiencing V-shaped recovery. The world is moving towards a China plus supply chain, where we are able to see, being domestic player. Definitely, many new manufacturing, lot of new plants and machineries are coming. Government is incentivizing the export. There are a lot of new government scheme to promote more and more export in electronics, in textiles, where India is good at. So I think first time in the history I'm experiencing India being the deficit location, especially for a 20-foot container. So for a 40-foot container, we are still a surplus market, but for a 20-foot container, and within next 5 years, I think if Indian government will not address this problem, then things may go out of the control, where you will not have too many containers to support your export. So yeah, it's going to be interesting time, and time will tell. But at least for a time being, 20-foot we have a deficit, 40-foot we have a surplus. And I personally don't agree that our ports are congested, because port is not a problem for time being. The space is a problem with the carrier.
Okay, and there's another question here. How promising do you think the price freeze announced by CMA and Hapag-Lloyd are? Do you think other carriers will follow suit, and is there going to be a dip in prices? And this, they're talking about container freight rates, I'm sure, after the Chinese Golden Week. What is your take on that in relation to the container trading, or in general as well?
Container trading is not honestly directly related. While it's a very positive move by CMA and Hapag, but the current prices, the way the prices has gone up, while I do understand the shipping lines were suffering almost last 2 decades, the shippers really pushed the shipping line in a corner. The financiers were not ready to finance losses. So it's a good time. But current prices from a global supply chain point of view is not sustainable. I'll take an example of whether it's a China-Europe trade or China-USA trade. You are talking about $10,000 just for a 40-foot container. So I think it's a welcome move. And not to underestimate the freight forwarder, the big freight forwarder already started chartering vessels. They already started loading their own container. Again, very welcome news for a container trader. So all the attendees, keep an eye. Many freight forwarders right now are looking for SOC container because they are chartering vessels, because that is turning out to be a cheaper for their customer to ship the cargo. And finally, Harish, it's all about the demand and supply. If freight rate will remain high, there will be new player joining the party, and then there will be equilibrium, right? Finally, where price automatically, if you have a more supply of new container vessel, the prices will go down, which has happened in the past, and it will happen in the future also.
But where do you think these big freight forwarders and people like Home Depot and Walmart, etc., are going to get their containers? Because if they charter ships, obviously you can't buy 5 containers or 10 containers. You're going to need a lot more container, probably in the hundreds, if not thousands. So where is there so much of availability in the market for the containers?
So normally, you cannot compare. Normally, the range of, the smaller charterer is in the range of 1,000, 1,100 TEUs, right? And right now, finding 1,000 container, even 20 feet, 40 feet, I don't see a big problem. If you have a big pocket, if you have a capital to support, then it's quite easy to source those containers.
And there are a lot.
Yeah. Sorry, Christian, carry on.
Yeah, there are a lot of traders who already secured production capacities for the upcoming months. That's why also Supal mentioned that he has the next production in what was it, January. So it's really difficult as there are a lot of players who already placed the production for the next month, secured volume so that they can support this shipping lines, but also freight forwarders with shippers owners. And there are, from the very beginning, there are a lot of players chartering smaller breakbulk or multi-purpose vessels, and this will continue. I totally agree with Supal.
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting time to see how successful they are and how often they will be able to do it, because the charter rates on the ships have also gone through the roof. So it's going to be a good mix of things. I think we have time for just one last question. What is the most common type of containers that you are trading? Is it restricted more to GPs, or are there more special equipments also in the mix?
For us, definitely, we have a very huge fleet of special. So it's a combination of special equipments and drive-ins. We also have another group from the Bolt, which is into the ISO tanks. So gradually, Arcon would like to venture into ISO tanks, but right now it's all about the specials, open top, flat rack, and drive-ins.
And for us, it's really more the standard container, 40-foot high cubes and 20-foot DCs. 40-foot DCs from our side, okay, now as the price for the high cube is so high, a lot of customers changed again. So DCs are meanwhile the bigger problem or the bigger challenge compared to high cubes, but I guess GPs will not be there for a long time from my perspective.
Great. Thank you for a great discussion, Supal and Christian, and thank you for educating us today on the container trading market. And thanks to GSLN for sponsoring this discussion, and also to Container Exchange for putting together this event. If you have any closing remarks, you can go for it, and we can close the session.
So I will say that, Harish, thank you. You are excellent. You're probably coordinator, and this is an excellent time. All my, probably peers in a container trading industry, I'll only say that don't expect this time to come in the near future. So take maximum benefit out of it. What is one thing where I still believe for all the container, it's a time to invest in a technology, because that is something where in the near future, where if you really would like to differentiate probably from the others, then take the benefit of the good margins, what we all are enjoying, invest in technology and upskilling your staff, and that's it. And then you continue to enjoy the benefit for long term. Thank you very much to all.
Thanks, Supal. Christian?
Yeah, thanks, Harish, also from my side for the coordination. Supal, thanks also to you for the nice discussion. Yeah, there are a lot of opportunities in our market, and it's a wave which we should ride as long as possible. This will continue perhaps for a year, perhaps less, perhaps more, we don't know. But in general, it's a challenge, and I guess what you mentioned before is the right way to find ways to be more efficient, to digitize opportunities and processes, and so I guess this will be the way for the future, and it will still be, container trading will still be a personal business, a people's business, but in the end, the processes in the background should be more digital in the future.
So everybody should make hay while the sun shines. And thank you to everyone again, and thank you to all the attendees for attending this, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Harish. Thank you, Christian.